I'm the other Jonathan, so I guess you get 2 for 1. I want you to close your eyes for a minute. Just everyone close your eyes, just for a moment. Thank you. You can open them now. One of the reasons I'm here is to talk about imagination and vision. And I think it's important. We talk about employment of persons with disabilities a lot, but we have to think of what is the value proposition of persons with disabilities, and more importantly, how do we think about a vision for the future? Oftentimes, we think about the need to employ people with disabilities because it's something that's good for business, but we have to go deeper than that. We have to think, what is the value of persons with disabilities within the business itself? Not just about employment, but the business strategy. I always think about disability from a strength-based model. And I think that we need to think about disability in a way that's different than we have before. We have to think about the lived experience of disability. And someone who has lived with a disability his entire life, hello, that's me, it's important to think, what can we learn from the lived experience, and how do we translate it into a business proposition? Oftentimes, when I work with, for example, I work with military veterans who are returning from the theater of war, and they say, well, how do we deal with new skill sets? And we can translate that. I think it's the same with disability. And one of the things that's critically important, at this conference, we've talked about it from a top-down approach. I think we have to think about disability as a dialogue. And the nature of work is changing at a rapid pace. We see work changing in new ways. There's an interesting quote from Bill Gates who said, one of the most important perks that companies can provide is remote work. And if you're providing remote work, then you can get the best and the brightest. I was talking yesterday, I had spoken to the provost of MIT, who said to me, a large percentage of our students are on the spectrum. What's interesting about that, and then I went to other universities like Caltech, the University of Michigan, and other engineering schools, and they all sort of said, yes, this is something that is similar to us. What is critical for companies to think about isn't just about the employment. It's about creating a culture of change. It's about creating an inclusive culture. One thing that people forget is that disability is the essence of diversity. It runs across race, ethnicity, gender, socioeconomic, sexual orientation. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? It is the only minority group that anyone can join. So you will become part of my community, not vice versa. And so it is important to think, why do we need to hire persons with disabilities? Because it is about the human experience, not separate. So we have to think about, how do we create an environment that is valued as a community? How do we think about the adaptations? And I actually like the word design. So when you hire a person with a disability, you have to think about it in terms of a design question. And when you design a culture and design workplace accommodations, you have to say, well, is this effective not just for persons with disabilities, but how does it impact our company? How does it make it more productive? How, through this culture of inclusivity, does it create new markets? Does it create new opportunities for us? And the answer is yes. So this is a challenge that I have for all business owners. I want you to reimagine and rethink disability as a business strategy. This is where true leadership comes into play. You have to say, no, we're not just about employing people with disabilities, but we have to see the whole process as something that is beneficial for our organization. This is something that is innovative and will continue to allow us to grow and thrive. That is probably the most critical thing. And it often is hard for people to think about this because it's going against the grain. And a lot of that, the sort of opposition is due to fear, and it's fear of the unknown. And it's very hard to sort of change one's mindset. As the other Jonathan said today, it's all in the head, and he's absolutely right. So that we have to think about how do we reframe the question. And it's important, you know, I am very influenced by a 10th century philosopher by the name, he's an Arabic philosopher by the name of Agyi. He wrote a book called The Book of Beliefs and Opinions. And he said that oftentimes the question is more important than the answer. So I want to leave here today with one thing in mind. I want you to always question, constantly, because from that questioning, you go through iterations and you will find ways and new strategies. One, to be able to include people with disabilities into your workforce, but then see how that inclusion creates a culture that is influential beyond any means that you have thought before. And it's exciting. For me, I'm always excited. I'm a New Yorker, I can't help it. That's just who I am. So I thank you so much for having me today. But at the end of the day, 1, question, 2, imagination, and 3, vision. Thank you.